right, good day today, folks. Welcome back to Bottle Basics. Today, we're going to be talking about a release from Woodinville Distillery out of Woodinville, Washington. It's a little bit of a younger crew, and this is one of their special releases that uses their flagship bourbon, which is a 72% corn, a 22% rye, and a 6%, that's the remainder, yes, 6% malted barley. All these grains come from the Omlin family farm in Washington State. It's a pretty interesting claim to fame there. And this group is based out of Washington. Just a couple of guys that wanted to chase after their dream. And they're pretty young to the distilling game, but they're figuring out a way to wedge themselves in there. Reading through their website and digging a little bit into their history, I want to say they started officially distilling at around 2010. And from their website, they aged their whiskeys at least 5 years. So their first release was in 2015 and it was well received. It was a bourbon. They have a few other kinds of whiskeys on their website. They've got a rye, they've got some special release bourbons of different ages and different mash bills. And this one is using a base of their flagship bourbon, and then they finish it with toasted Applewood Staves. This is 100 proof, 50% alcohol by volume, and it is pot stilled. Well, I believe hybrid distilled. It's a pot that feeds up into a column still, and they tap from that the purity that they're chasing after, along with the taste profile. So let's get into this a little bit. Looking at this guy, she's got a pretty nice dark color there, but not too dark. Pretty good legs on it, quite oily. And on the nose, it's a pretty bright whiskey as far as the alcohol is concerned, but you do get a lot of dark notes at the top, maybe some burnt honey and caramel, vanilla for sure. For a lot of pot still whiskeys, sorry, I'm kind of like working this out as I go. I get kind of like, it's not tainted, but it's a different layer of flavor than you would get from a more purely distilled spirit. So you get kind of the traces of sediment, a little bit more oil and char notes that come through. And certainly for this one, that's definitely the case. You know, the burnt honey that you get on the nose comes through the flavor. You get more vanilla, maybe some light chocolate, or maybe even milk chocolate. There's a good viscosity to this. Oh, another interesting thing that they do for the barrels, they season their barrels. Actually, hold on for a second. Let me get the specific information. Maybe I'll fast forward through this. Yeah, I'm back. I'm not. Oh, yeah, okay, I remember. Okay, so they season their barrels just open air, but before they cooper them, before they make them barrels, they season the wood for 18 months. And they do this in Quincy, Washington. So like from the very ground level where you got the grains to the barreling process and bottling, it's all contained in Washington State, which I think is really cool. It gives it a nice integrity, especially for a smaller distillery. You see a lot of other smaller distilleries, when they start trying to jump into the game, they'll take someone else's spirit and then age that into whatever proprietary method they're looking after, that they're trying to get after. But these individuals, in respect to them, are going after it from the ground up. And you know, you gotta respect the hustle. And what they came out with for this one is, you know, it's a good whiskey. It's got good depth. It's really enjoyable. It's really quite sweet, and a good amount of a character to it. You know, they say on their websites, the tasting profile that they're chasing after is a little bit more fruity. I don't get a whole lot of fruit notes, but it is there a little bit in the brightness. I feel like at least for my palate specifically, the pot still sediment and layers of char and dark notes that just kind of overpower a lot of things. But you know, I haven't gone through the process of watering it down a little bit to open it up or anything like that. I'm just kind of drinking it as it is. And what I can say, as it is, I like it, man. You know, it's easy to drink. It does have, for, you know, 100 proof, it's not that high, but it's got a decent amount of kind of like bright burn up front. You got to walk through. And that's not always the case for some whiskeys. And, you know, actually, I don't mind that. I like the hit. It makes it a little bit more interesting to drink and to get through. And for the amount of infrastructure that it takes to put together this kind of operation, you know, you really got to respect the amount of commitment that it takes to get done what they've done. They bought and had made some German handmade stills, and they work in small batches or single batches, so that every iteration they come out with, there's probably going to be a little bit of a distinct character to it, especially given how varied the seasons are in Washington. So I'd be curious, you know, I've only a little bit of exposure to these guys, but I'd be curious the variance in their product. I have this bottle, and actually I have another bottle behind me that I actually want to compare a little bit to. Just give me 1 second. All right, so magically what I have here is their straight bourbon whiskey from their private select release. This is a higher proof, so it's not going to be like a apples to apples kind of comparison. This one is bottle number 160 out of barrel number 13,667. This is 112.46 proof, or 56.23% alcohol if you want to do math. Let's just pour out just a little bit of this to see how it compares to the Applewood Staves. This is using their same base bourbon mash bill of the 72, 22, and 6%. Let's leave this up here so you can see it. Let me, wow, there it is, beautiful. Just a little bit of a color comparison. Whoop, wash that up. Sorry if I got fingerprints here. You know, color-wise, actually, let me drink this down to about the same size. Darn, it's a tough life. Almost there. One more. All right, let's compare these guys. Color-wise, they look pretty similar. I would maybe put, man, like it's hard to pick one darker over the other. I've been drinking this one a little bit more, so maybe there's some contamination there of myself. Smell-wise, it's certainly different. Yeah, okay. This one is a little bit more mapley on the nose and a little bit more pure. This one's getting more toasted notes. It could also be because it's been sitting out and like washed around the glass a little bit more. But yeah, I just want to say overall, the straight bourbon, how are they advertising it? Their flagship bourbon is just a little bit more cleaner of a smell on the nose. Let's get to taste. All right, so you definitely get the sediment from the still a little bit more. It's actually a little bit brighter in profile too. It's almost like a granular kind of flavor. Whereas on the Applewood Staves, it seems like it's toned down just a little more rounder, softer of a profile note. But it's definitely still there. You get a little bit more wood flavoring from the Applewood Staves. I wouldn't call it oak, but I like more of the caramel slash vanilla slash chocolate, like those kind of mid-tones I'm getting from the Applewood Staves. And, you know, I think on the back end, maybe a little bit more like a white flesh kind of fruit. Yeah. Okay, so maybe like a ripe pear, or an unripe strawberry kind of brightness. Whereas on this one, interestingly, on this one, I do get a little bit more apple on the nose as a bright note, but it doesn't come across through the taste. It's still very good. I was going to do a separate review of this one. Actually, I think I still might. I just want to do this for comparison's sake, but we'll take a look at this one a little bit later. In the meantime, you know, there's a distinct difference between the two. So if you have the opportunity to pick both of these up, I think, you know, if you like one or the other, then it's worth picking up the other one because they have a similarity, like a same kind of core flavor, but also a distinctness between the two that makes each one valid, which isn't always the case when you have like close proximity releases or some adjacent brand releases. They're not different enough to justify, but I think this one is. Set this to the side. Back to the Applewood Staves. Actually, you know, first let me finish this one up. This is the that one over there. I like bourbon. So the Applewood Staves, it's good. All right, so let's get into the radar chart for this guy. For sweetness, 7, spice, 2, smoke, 3, wood, 3, fruit, 2, and lastly, character, it's a 5. Now, again, it's not the higher number, the better. This is just kind of where it lands. It is a very good bourbon. And, you know, I'm a fan of it. I'm not a huge proponent typically of pot still, just because I like a little bit more of a cleaner profile a lot of the time, but I do from time to time appreciate the character and depth of flavor and characteristics that pot still typically imbibes upon some whiskeys. But also, you know, it's not always the case with pot still. Yamazaki, using that as an example, that's a pot still whiskey, and they are able to achieve a very clean kind of flavor. I think it just all depends on the execution and what the distillers are going for. And for this, they're kind of going for a richer, I think, deeper profile, something with a little bit more character. And you know what? I think they accomplished that quite well. So with all that being said, this has been Bottle Basics. Thank you for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe. Without further ado, see you next pour. Hoorah!